Welcome to Your Life Matters podcast. Please be advised that many topics are very sensitive and may be triggering for you. Many discussions will be about suicide, trauma, mental health, and depression. If an episode is too triggering for you, please do the necessary steps in regard to listening to the episode. If you or know anyone struggling with mental health, suicide ideation, suicidal thoughts, and depression, please seek professional help or reach out to a crisis hotline or confide in someone that you trust. I hope my podcast helps you, but most of all, I hope it provides the safe space that you are looking for. Please know that you are not alone and there is someone out here who is happy to have you in their life. So please stay alive for them. And also remember that your life matters. I love you and thank you for joining my podcast. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Your Life Matters. It has been a really long time, and I definitely do apologize for that. A lot of stuff has been going on, good stuff, but I will talk about that in another episode. But today's episode, I guess you can say, will be pretty intense. I would say a little controversial, just only because there's a lot of people who have their own perception of what this topic really means, and definitely different opinions and definitely different experiences. Today, I really wanted to talk about what it means to be alone. And when I say alone, I mean alone. Like, no support system, no friends, no family, no nothing. And I feel like many people don't believe that there is actually people out there who don't have anyone. Like, they go on about their lives by themselves. They go out to eat by themselves. They battle many things on their own. They celebrate holidays on their own. They celebrate their birthdays on their own. And they're literally just navigating life on their own. The reason why I really wanted to talk about this is because, for those of you that don't know, September is Suicide Awareness Month. And this is just my opinion, but I'm also only speaking from experience as well. But I feel like many people that choose to take their own lives, they do it because they feel like they don't have anyone. I definitely feel like people don't understand the stress and mental toll it can take on you when you are literally having to figure out everything on your own. You are having to battle everything on your own. You are having to literally navigate life on your own.
I always talk about having a support system and how important that is. And there's many people out here who don't have that. Now, I do want to clarify that, I'm really talking about people who, you know, they have all these battles and trials in life and they're very stressed or they're just battling their mental health, but they try their hardest to still be happy. They still go into work with a smile. They still treat people kindly. I also kind of want to talk about how you can be surrounded by people but still feel like you don't have anyone. And I know that may sound very confusing. And I definitely do feel like many people don't understand that. But until you're in that position, you're gonna understand it. You could be dealing with so much. And I think what makes it more harder to navigate is when you don't have that support system or you don't really have anyone that you can really talk and vent about what you're dealing with. Many people will say, get a therapist because, that's kind of what they're there for. In some cases, for some people, they can't get a therapist. I'll say for me, I did have a therapist, but I actually had to stop going because financially I just couldn't afford it anymore. And I think there's a lot of people that are in that situation, especially right now. I feel like when it comes to mental health and depression and stress, anything that, can affect your mental health, everyone's trauma is different. Everyone's healing journey is different. Everyone's upbringing is different. Everyone's childhood trauma is different. I definitely do feel like it is hard to find people that you can relate to. When you're able to talk to people that relate to what you're dealing with, it definitely helps. It definitely makes it better. But I think many of us kind of struggle with the fact of, not wanting to be a burden on people, not wanting to trauma dump, not wanting to be a Debbie Downer, and I definitely struggle with that. Even though I have friends, that say to me, we're here for you, we uh, support you, and whatever you need, we're here. I mean, again, when you're so used to having to deal with everything on your own, it makes it harder to speak up. When you've had to do your own healing and figure out how to break generational traumas and behaviors, and you're doing all of that on your own. First of all, it takes major strength and maturity to do that. But it's stressful because it's all on you. So there is a quote kind of going around on Instagram that I've noticed, and I'm not a fan of it. I'll be honest. I think I don't know if maybe it could be said in a nicer way, or like it just, you guys already know, I've mentioned it multiple times in my other episodes that I hate how society is really pushing the narrative of you have to be alone and you have to pretty much do everything on your own and you don't need anybody. You guys know how I feel about that. I'm completely against that. I do not think that's the right way to go navigating life. But the quote that's been going around is, nobody is going to come and save you. I feel like that puts even more insane pressure on somebody to heal and to figure out everything on their own. Now, yes, healing is a choice. Growing is a choice. Breaking generational traumas is a choice. Getting better is a choice. But I feel like when you are constantly pushing the narrative that you need to be alone and you need to do everything on your own and no one's going to be there for you, you're pushing people into isolation. That's really how I feel. I feel like you're really legit putting the narrative out that you don't need anybody. And I personally just feel like that's super unhealthy. It's unhealthy, and I feel like this really pushes people to suffer in silence. And I very strongly feel like this is where suffering in silence comes from. Being told you don't need anybody, being told to figure stuff out on your own, not being allowed to speak up and express your feelings. All of that is pushing someone to suffer in silence. And if you really understand suicide, you'll understand that that's why many people choose to die from suicide. Or this is why many people don't speak up and are battling everything silently, because that's the narrative, that's like how you're pretty much supposed to solve everything, silently and by yourself. And that needs to change. And I think it also starts with, people being more compassionate, people being more nice, people being more open to hearing what people are going through, but also providing that safe space. If you are not providing that safe space, you cannot expect someone to open up and to actually say what's going on. I'll be honest, I'm the type of person, all it takes for me is like one time for me to see that you're unsympathetic or that you're not understanding, or if you like dismiss my feelings or something like that. Chances are I'm not going to tell you pretty much anything again. But I'm also the type as well, I'll speak up about what I'm going through, or I'll try to bring it up in not such a dark type of way. But if the people kind of just don't show a care in it or show support in it, I'm not going to really speak up about it again. I feel like if you're dealing and battling with something that many people may not understand, I definitely feel like finding support groups that help and understand what you're going through are good for that. With me being adopted, being able to find adoptee friends that 100% validate how I feel and understand, what I'm going through definitely does help. But I know that there's many people who don't have that luxury because it is very hard to find people that can relate to you. I feel like many people kind of don't understand when someone that feels alone feels that way, but yet they have a bunch of people around them, or they have, maybe a ton of friends. I feel like everybody has a different lifestyle, I want to say. I feel like you can be somebody that has a ton of friends, but you may not be close with your family. You can be someone that is super close with your family, but you may not have a lot of friends, or you may not have any. Or, I hate to say this because it's really sad to think that there are actually people who actually deal with this, but like, I feel like it's one of those two, or you're someone that doesn't have any family and doesn't have any friends. I think when it comes to someone who may not be close with their family but has a lot of friends, I feel like the pressure of, whether you're like the older sibling or like you're the good child or responsible child, you don't want to either disappoint your parents, or like you don't want to disappoint your siblings, or it could be something where maybe you were like the responsible one, but then you have siblings that, got to do whatever they wanted and were rebellious, and, you had to kind of pay the price for their bullcrap, or, you had to be the one taking care of everyone and you're seen as the responsible one. That can definitely make you feel like you don't have anyone, or you don't have a family. I definitely think not wanting to disappoint your parents puts a insane amount of pressure, and that can make you feel like you don't really have any support, any love, or anything. I feel like if you're someone that is very close with your family, but you don't have a lot of friends, I feel like with that, it's a situation where like you have that family love, but it's like when it comes to friends, it's just like you're always giving, 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 and you're always going all out for people. You're always checking on them, but then nobody's checking on you. Nobody's showing up for you. Nobody's asking if you're okay or if you need anything. That will definitely make you feel like you don't have anybody. If you're always showing up for special events for your friend, if you're always supporting them, but then you're not getting that support back, you will feel like you don't have any friends. And I also feel like friend dynamics can also make you feel like you don't have anybody. Like say you're the only single friend. Say you're the only one that doesn't have kids. say you're the only one that's not engaged and not married, you will definitely feel alone. I feel like having friends is very hard nowadays. It's definitely very hard to find authentic friendships. You know, I kind of understand why some people who are super close with their family kind of just stick with that. Um, but I also don't feel like you should be navigating life with no friends. But it's also very hard, like I said, to find authentic people and authentic friendships. Now, if you are someone who doesn't have any of that, I know this falls into the strongest people category. And, there's only so many times you can hear you're so strong for dealing with that, or you're so strong for dealing and battling what you're battling with or navigating. This is the part where I feel like it's about to get a little controversial. I feel like people who say they're scared to be alone or don't want to do things alone don't really know what that really truly means. And when I hear people say that, it's kind of like you should be scared to not want to do anything alone. You should be scared because it's really a, and like I said, I'm just only speaking from experience. I do hope people that are having to do what I'm about to talk about relate to it, but having to do stuff on your own can get traumatic after a certain point. Now, granted, there are some people out here who love their alone time. They love doing stuff by themselves. They love going out by themselves. They're okay with not having a family. They're okay with not having friends. And that's fine. That is completely fine. But there's many people out here who are experiencing that, not because they want to, but because they don't have a choice. And I can't stress this enough. There is a major difference with that. Having to experience being alone, not because you want to, but because you don't have a choice. I had seen a girl make a video. And in her caption, she kind of mentions that being single isn't an issue for her because she has a loving family and a big group of friends that love her. When I saw it, I was happy at the fact that like she had that much support and love. But part of me was kind of like, okay, if you didn't have any of that, how would you really feel? Like, again, there's many people who don't have any of that. And I kind of feel like if this person didn't have a loving family or friends, and in just my personal opinion, I just don't believe that she would feel that way. And like I said, there are people out here who are okay with being alone and single. But I definitely feel like people need to admit that, like, after 5 years of being single, after 6, 7, 8, 10 years of being single, you are going to have a hard time navigating that. And I also want to clarify, there's definitely a difference between being alone and being lonely. I definitely very strongly feel that people who say that they're scared to be alone or they don't want to be alone, you're not alone. You're just lonely. And I think that's why I get a little agitated when I hear people say that, because it's like, until you've actually really experienced what it means to be alone and to do stuff on your own and to navigate life on your own and what that entails, you don't know what it's like to be alone. When I moved out to LA, it was it got pretty traumatic at one point, because I legit had no friends. And I did have a couple of family members out there, but, I'm going to be very blunt and direct. I don't have that family bond with family members. So I kind of didn't really count that. Making friends was super difficult. And I literally had to experience so much by myself. And this was stuff I did not think I would have to experience on my own. I'm going to say I feel like my whole life I've had to, well, not whole life, but ever since I would say maybe like 11, I've had to navigate so much on my own and do everything on my own. And growing up, I always felt like I didn't have anyone. I always struggled to make friends and, never really had a close-knit bond with family. So I always felt like I was alone and I didn't have anyone. And when I was in LA, there were times where I was spending holidays by myself. I was spending birthdays by myself. I was spending Thanksgiving by myself. I was spending New Year's by myself. I was navigating Mother's Day by myself. There were a few moments where, like on Thanksgiving, I worked up the courage to, make my own feast and everything. And it was fun, But after a certain while, like after the fourth Thanksgiving, spending it by myself, not just Thanksgiving, birthday. I would say after spending 4 birthdays by myself and 4 Thanksgivings by myself, I kind of started to lose my mind a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I definitely tried to do the whole, traveling alone, going out on your own, taking yourself out, end quote, taking yourself out on dates type of thing. And it just became too traumatic for me. And I want to say traumatic and triggering because it was just a full-blown reminder of how much I didn't have anyone. Now, I will say that I am able to still do stuff on my own. Like, I still do a lot on my own. I still go to like events and concerts and little trips on my own. But it would be nice to have people there with me as well. I will say in LA, it became too difficult because, like I said, it was just like a reminder of how much I don't have anyone. And it it wasn't good. It really affected me mentally. I definitely became severely depressed over it. But now it's on and off. You know, some days I'll just randomly go into a cafe or a restaurant and get lunch or dinner, but it's not, I don't really have the ability to just get dressed up and go to like a restaurant by myself. It's to me, it's not fun. And I'd rather not do it than get triggered by it. And I know many people will say you're ignoring the point and purpose of it, but it's like, again, when you're already doing everything on your own, you don't need constant reminders of how alone you are.